Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. I'll demonstrate using the newer Kinetic interface, and remember to put any questions in the chat window for me to answer at the end of the presentation. Once you learn the basics of creating BAQs, the tables to use and other basic related items, you can move on to tailoring your queries more to your company's needs. Today I'll show you some of the basics about filtering, grouping, and sorting your queries. We'll cover filtering using table criteria and subquery results, grouping using the basic group by and advanced group by, and sorting using the sort by fields. And we'll go into more details on each of these topics on the following slides. So for filtering, one of the easiest things to help your queries work better is to use the filtering options for your tables. Here's an example of adding the filter to the order head table. And notice the checkbox indicator, which indicates this particular table has a filter on it. The steps to set up a table criteria for filtering is to first select the table that you want the filter on, which is order head in this case, and then to add one or more criteria to that table by selecting the plus icon in the lower half here, and multiple criteria can be set on each table as needed. Notice each of the columns of the criteria that you have and or available here. Usually the first criteria doesn't have either, but when you start adding criteria, you choose and or to say if you want your criteria to work together or one of the choices. And then you also have the parentheses to group your criteria if you want. You have the checkbox to say not, for example, in this case, it would be not equal to. And then you pick your field name that you want your criteria on. In this case, it's the open order. And then you pick the operation. And notice you have more operations than are shown here. These are the general greater than or equal to. There's also begins and matches, etc. Drop-down box. And then you have the filter value. You have all different kinds of options for your filter values, whether you use a specified table, a constant, a specified expression, a specified parameter, BAQ, special constant, or your current date plus an interval, or you select values of their field from a specified subquery. So on subqueries, you can have filter like those available on the tables with different operations and filter values available in the dropdowns for each column. In addition, subqueries can have filters by setting the result set rows. So you can see here you have all, or you can have distinct or top or distinct top. And then if you select like top or distinct top, you can tell how many of those that you want. And you also have the options for offset and fetch values. So for example, you can show the top 10 and there's a with ties, which means if your 10th and 11th option would have the same values in your sorting for top, then both would be shown. Instead of just 10, you'd have 11 shown. Or the offset of 20 would mean you skip the first 20, and then if you say to fetch 10, then you would show the next 10. These settings all depend on your sort order to select the top 10, for example. You can also create a simulated filter by using calculated fields, which can then be brought into the results at the top level, so that you would only show certain specific records based on whatever your calculated fields are and brought into the upper level query. Next, for grouping, we have the basic group by shown here, the little boxes that you can check on your display fields. So the basic group by function can be used at the top level query or at the subquery level. Just know that if you group by a field using these checkboxes, all fields that are displayed need to be either grouped or they need to be a calculated field that uses an aggregate function or a case statement, for example. If you include a calculated field that is not one of the accepted types, you will get an error like the one shown below. The column is invalid because it's not contained in either an aggregate function or the group by clause. Most of the time you're going to group more in the subqueries and not at the top level, but it is possible in both areas. So next we'll talk about grouping using the advanced group by. Epicor has an icon available that's used for the advanced group by here, and some of the advanced calculations you can use are roll-up, cube, and grouping sets. This is an example of using the grouping sets, which shows multiple groups of data into separate sets. Only specified groups aggregate sum instead of the entire aggregations that generate by the cube and roll-up operators. Results are similar to a union-all relationship for the specified groups. Group sets can contain a single field value or a list of fields and values. Summaries will show for each field value shown in the grouping sets. So here we have the grouping set by part bin, warehouse, and part bin part number. This is a quick and simple example based on a filter for one part. So you can see we are just giving the results for this part 1032, the different warehouses, and using the group sets, you have a group total per warehouse and the total for the part, basically. That would include you have to have a calculated field for the summary of part bin quantity on hand. And these are the display fields. So a roll-up will give values that contain subtotals and totals. You'll see aggregate summary values through a hierarchy of the selected columns. One row then generates with a subtotal for each unique combination. Grand total row is also shown. A cube will show simple group by rows. Roll up aggregate rows and rows that cross-tabulate these results. Cube will show one row for each unique combination, and a subtotal for each row and a grand total row will also be shown. The advanced group by is available for use, but is beyond more than this overview for this presentation. For example, additional examples and questions may need to be answered with examples set up. So you would probably have to ask a question and I would have to get back to you with an answer via email. The intention today is just to let you know these advanced group by options are available. And lastly, we have our sorting options, the sort by fields. Using the tab for sort order, so you have the display fields and then you have the sort order. You can select which fields to sort your results by. Notice here I changed the default of ascending for the customer ID column by not checking sort ascending. Notice the results show the company is sorted ascending, the customer ID is sorted descending, and then the customer order is sorted ascending based on the checkboxes that I have there. Sort options need to be on the top level query. If you try to run or analyze your queries with the sort on a subquery, you'll get an error that indicates you need to have sorting at the top level query.